Okay, sick. So, final exam. Pretty simple. Got some questions here that I have some notes on. I am ready to answer for y'all. Why is it important that people see famous works of art? And why is it important that you see famous works of art? Personally, I think it's to keep a piece of past and understand our history. I think that seeing old artwork is just a time capsule in its own way, like to that time and everything that was going on, the struggles, and I think a lot of that is reflected in art. So I think, just the time, the history is just all like ways of conveying what's going on is a lot of it's just in sculptures, paintings, and then just other forms of art too. Uh, it takes us back to a point in history where we can only imagine. We got texts, we've got papers from back then, but again, what really gives us a visual of that time in history is the art that's preserved throughout the world. So yeah, that's kind of my basic answer on why it's important to see art. And then it's important for me to see famous pieces of artwork because I think it's just like, I don't know, I get into it a little bit more on one of the other questions, but I think America doesn't really value art as much as Europe does. I don't know how to explain that, and I do a little bit more explanation in my next few questions, but I just think for me personally, it was important to see just like how much art is valued and how much it connects us to our past. And again, it's a general like kind of consensus of what I said, why everyone else should see art, but also for me as well. So hopefully that made sense. All right, next one. Consider all the people, costs, and resources that are being utilized to preserve the art you saw. Comment on what those actions say about the societies preserving their art. How does that apply in the US? Okay. Well, kind of an intense question. Like I said earlier, I feel like the US preserving art doesn't seem to be at the top priority when it compares to other countries, especially those in Europe. Whether it's because our art is lackluster or just compared to other countries, or whether it's because, sorry, I lost my place on my notes. Or, excuse me, we have other ways of showing, at least in the US, like our history of, and granted, we have artwork, but it just doesn't seem like we have the level and detail, and also just like old enough artwork and old enough history to like have sculptures and stuff like that, because we kind of forget America is pretty young compared to some of these countries around the world. But yeah, I think preserving art is not an intense compared to the countries we saw the past 2 weeks. They care a lot about their artists and history. I'm not saying America doesn't care about art, but the level of resources that are being utilized to preserving that art in Europe are extremely higher than that in the US. So, I mean, society preserving art, again, I just think it's a lot more prominent in the US. About the US society preserving their art. And it's cool, it's good. It's better that in Europe that they're preserving that art. It's cool. They have a reason to, and I'm about to get into that next kind of point in some history, at least from research and like historical stuff that I'm kind of already aware of. Being the next question, why do you think about people risking their lives during World War II for some of the art you've witnessed? I do in part think that Europe's reaction to preserving art might come from the Nazi Party during World War II, with burning many cultures, just papers and artwork and just history in its own. Europe saw this firsthand, especially just like being plopped right in the middle of all that was going on. I feel like the preservation was already serious enough, but after that stint in history in that decade, I feel like it just became way more conscious. Like they had, there's artwork that's still popping up or has popped up in the past 20 years that they're just now getting back. It was a weird time. I mean, Germany was burning art, burning books, burning culture, burning history. Like they were trying to wipe societies and cultures just off the map and start anew. And it was pretty intense stuff. And if you were to see that firsthand, I feel like the preservation and resources that goes into like taking care of that art and making sure that something like that never happens again is just a lot more serious. I mean, we've had battles and wars over here in the US, and sometimes it's mostly been with ourselves, but I don't think there's a point in history that's had that level of just like almost evil, just burning a culture, history off the face of the earth. Like, I don't know. So I think that's what goes into just kind of the preservation and why people risk their lives during World War II, like to save their culture and save their history and like make sure that their story and their culture is still around to this day. So that's where I think that went. So, a little bit softer, lighter tone. explain the moments you experienced wonder. And wonder, honestly, there were so many times. I mean, coming up to Florence, up those stairs when I was not doing too hot, and finally coming up the spiral staircase and looking out over Florence, that was a reward, and it was amazing. And I personally really appreciated culture and beauty and everything in life, I guess, has to offer at that point in time. So that was amazing. Another moment I experienced wonder was Michelangelo's David. When I turned the corner, I was like, whoa, that's like some serious art right there. Pierce and I goofed off and joked around a lot on the trip, as y'all know, but it was pretty amazing. We were both kind of like, we stopped and we were like, whoa, that's crazy. The detail in the hair, I feel like I'm doing another video again. The detail in the hair, the features, how tall it was. It was insane. The detail was amazing. It was just mind blowing. All that and more. I mean, unless you were Dr. Fox and Macy, who thought the best part of David was the butt, which you could also see from around the statue, and also back there you could see his sling on his, like, he's kind of holding his sling, which I thought was pretty cool. I didn't, it's a detailed statue enough. I didn't expect they'd add that as well. So again, just 2 times I experienced wonder. Kind of almost closing in on 10 minutes here, man. Why do you think this trip and your experience will affect your future self? Well, whether it was the naked dancers, to David's butt, the stunning views and beautiful artwork, I think I've learned to take life a little bit slower. I was walking around Europe, and the one thing I've always just noticed was they weren't in a crazy rush. You know, granted, I mean, when we're on the trains and, it's different. That's just kind of life and how it is. But, they took life pretty slow. They enjoyed it. They weren't on their phones. That's one thing I just kept noticing. Like, we were, like, no matter what group I was in, having dinner with whoever it was, like, we'd all eventually get on our phones. And then I'd look up, and I'd just look around, and you could tell who was a local and who wasn't. And someone said, one of the professors said, I can't remember, but they were like, hey, you'll be known as an American if you get on your phone at dinner. They don't do that. And every now and then it stuck with me, and I kept looking up, and I was like, oh, wow, that's true. And it was just interesting. Like, family time is much more valued, and that's an aspect of I think that I'm going to take home with me of my family. Like, how I got mom and dad. I don't have siblings, like, I should appreciate that more because, they're not going to be around all the time. And I think that's also another trait I learned in Rome, Italy. Like, our first day was our chef for pasta. She got emotional talking about her Nonna and the memories she had cooking with her. And I think that's what I'm going to do, is just slow down and appreciate life as much as I can because, things move fast over here and it's a different world, almost just like being in the States again. Like, just take life slow. Overall, I really enjoyed everything about this trip. I made some incredible memories. I've seen some amazing places, met some amazing people. But overall, damn, this video is long. Sorry, guys. But again, I really do appreciate everything that this trip has had to offer, and all the good, the bad, and everything else in between. So, thank y'all.